Great evening, everyone, and welcome once again to Conversations with, a recurrent web series organized by the Internet Society Trinidad and Tobago chapter and hosted by yours truly, along with my co-host, the lovely Vice Chair Jacqueline Morris. Hi, Jackie.
Hi.
Tonight's conversation is with our specially invited guest and my dear friend, Mr. Shernon Osepa, Director of Caribbean Affairs and Development at the Internet Society. Previously, Shernon was the Manager for Regional Affairs for Latin America and the Caribbean at ISOC. And prior to joining ISOC, Shernon was the Manager Regional Relations Caribbean for ICANN for more than 3 years. And prior to ICANN, he was Policy Advisor with the Telecommunications and Post-Regulatory Authority, Bureau Telecommunicatie and Post in the Netherlands Antilles for almost 6 years. Shernon has a long, very interesting trajectory in this world of ICTs and the internet. And I think with such an extensive background, Shernon, you are indeed the ideal speaker to address the topic of the state of the internet during the pandemic and beyond. So Shernon, to get us started, I'm going to start immediately. Tell us something that the average person doesn't know about you.
Wow, I think it's very, okay, first of all, thank you very much for the invitation. It's always a pleasure and honor. I think maybe the average person doesn't know that I have a private pilot license. I think that's basically the only thing. Some of you know that I play the classical guitar as well. We have had some very great examples or experiences in Montevideo with Jacqueline a couple of years ago. And we went into a place and then I started to play. But not normally people would see me like a kind of a, it's not laid back, it's more like kind of a shy person, whatever. But I do have my hobbies, and aviation is one of those, and classical guitar as well. So those are the things that I think most people would not know that I'm engaged with.
You're a man of multiple talents, Shernon. You're a fellow polyglot, and I'm very glad to be your friend and for you to share that with us here on this evening's episode. So we are talking about the state of the internet. And of course, in talking about the state of the internet, we have to recognize that the internet, along this internet value chain, one may assume that a lot of things are happening because of the pandemic. So I think there's a question of a lot of truths and a lot of myths. Could you just give us an overall view as to what has been happening with the internet since the pandemic began?
Yes, I think one of the first myths that we had to discuss with people with respect to the internet was when we went in the first, let's say, lockdown, people were scared because they thought, okay, the internet is going to break, because everybody is online. So what is going to happen with the internet? But what we have seen is that the internet didn't break. And basically, it has shown us that the whole principle on which the internet is based, so the protocols, the TCP protocol, it's a very resilient and robust system that was developed almost 40 years ago. And normally, just to take an example with aviation, for example, there are certain maneuvers or whatever that are very difficult to execute in real life, and it could be dangerous as well. So what we have invented is to develop or to design, let's say, simulators in which pilots can simulate all kinds of maneuvers without putting themselves into danger. Just imagine someone trying to crash a Airbus 380 and you don't know what the consequences could be. But in a simulator, they can simulate all kinds of threats and still being able to train. So this is exactly what happened with the internet. We have been using the internet. We are so familiar with the internet, but we never had a chance to go to the extreme part of the internet. It's like you're there in Port of Spain, and you have your Ferrari, for example, and right in Port of Spain, you cannot take out all the power of that car. But if you go, for example, to San Fernando, then you can test it, right? So that's the same thing that what happened with the internet. And now we had a unique opportunity in real life to experience if what we have been preaching for so many years, if that's still true. And we are happy, the whole internet community can say the internet didn't break. So that was the most important thing. Of course, when we're talking about the internet didn't break, that doesn't mean that there are no challenges, for example, with IXPs or operators. That's something else. But on the global level, the internet has been performing the way that all of us did expect it to be. And I'm not sure how we would like to go, but maybe I can focus a bit on different areas of the networks that we have seen that, and then I can explain what we have seen with all these different kind of networks.
Certainly. So for instance, from previous guests we had on this web series, they spoke about scenario planning for this sort of situation, the pandemic. And of course, we know that there's a hodgepodge of what you would call the regular and pre-planned digital transformation initiatives, along with pivoting initiatives, just to have some sense of continuity of operations while the lockdown measures are being put in place across the globe. What would you say are some of the consequences or some of the perspectives from an end user or someone who is, let's just say an end user of the internet? What would that shift look like? Or what did that shift look like?
Yes, and that's exactly where I would like to focus a bit. You have a lot of, let's say, when you look at the internet ecosystem, you have a lot of players and all of them in one order give a contribution to the development of the internet. So if you look, for example, at the, let me see where I have my notes here. Yes, if you look, for example, at the users, you may hear some backgrounds. I have a crazy guy on a motorcycle doing some things. but okay, it's fine. We are here in the Caribbean. So yes, I think before I go to the users, let me just touch base on a few networks, and then I can go for people to get the overall view. Okay, so just permit me to give an overall view of that. Because one of the discussions that we have had within the internet society is, for example, and that is also one of the projects that we are focusing on, is what we call measurements. A lot of times we are talking, but we don't have, let's say, empirical data to back up basically what we are saying, right? So we have some reports. We have seen some reports that have been dealing, especially with this topic, with what's happened with the internet during the pandemic. And I will just mention a few, and then I will go to the users on the topic as you get asked. For example, if we just take a look, let's say the global overall traffic, then we can say that we have seen an increase from somewhere between 20, and I'm talking about globally right now, somewhere between 20 to 200% traffic increase. If we look in the Caribbean, based on data from the telecoms and ISPs in the Caribbean, we did experience a traffic increase of 40%. So that's the Caribbean reality. But globally, we have seen somewhere between 20 to even 200% overall traffic growth. We have also seen, for example, changes in the application use. Especially right now, we are using video conference platform, and this is one of the areas where we have seen significant increase, even beyond 200% increase, traffic increase. And this is all due to the video conferences, given that people are locked down, social distancing, we cannot gather, all those kind of things. And we also have seen, for example, at universities, at campus, for example, we have seen, for example, the outgoing traffic increased of, let's say, 250%, because remember now, for example, students are at home, but still they need to access, let's say, the campus or the university's resources in order for them to continue to do their stuff.
And Shernon, that's 250 is at the global level, correct?
Yes, yes. I'm talking about global level.
Right.
Yes.
I'll come back to that in a minute.
Yes, and we have also seen, especially with campus, also a decrease of almost, don't be scared, of 1,000%, but that is more incoming traffic, because given that everybody had to leave campuses, then of course, it's only, let's say, the outgoing traffic that people were interested in, but the incoming traffic, that given that you don't have people working at the university, we have seen traffic decrease, let's say, all the way to 1,000%. And we also have seen globally, let's say, somewhere between 9 p.m. to 5 a.m., a kind of a peak hour where most people were, let's say, online. That's something that we have seen with the application use. If we take a look on mobile networks, here also we have some very interesting data. For example, roaming has declined significantly because, of course, people cannot travel. So we have seen a significant traffic decline. Of course, you don't have tourists to go from one place to the other. Most of the times they are using the roaming services. So that's with respect to roaming, telecoms operators have been complaining because they saw traffic decrease with respect to roaming. If we look at interconnections between, let's say, networks, here we have seen also an increase because, of course, you need to have traffic being sent from one network to the other. And we have seen the traffic increase from somewhere 100 to even 1,000% traffic increase. So that's with respect to interconnection. If we look at the cloud, let's say, platforms, here also we have seen some very interesting development. We haven't seen, for example, persistent congestions, let's say, on cloud platforms. But what we have observed, especially in what we call suburban areas, especially here not here, I mean in the US, for example, suburban areas, IXPs on these areas, they had a challenge, especially to get video streaming or other file being downloaded from the cloud. Because how do you call it? You had, given that these networks, especially rural areas and those kind of networks, they already have a challenge, right? Especially when you have rural areas, they are most of the times not, let's say, the top networks. And given that you're rural or let's say a bit suburban, and it was a challenge for IXPs to reach the cloud. So we have seen some challenges there. The last mile network, this is the most important network where we normally are connected to the, let's say, the broadband service of a given ISP. And this part of the network is exactly where, based on the last mile, we can judge a given network. We can say, okay, this is a very bad service, this is a very good service. Most of the time it's due to the last mile, because we normally are connected to the last mile network. And we, for example, RIPE NCC, this is a sister regional internet registry for Europe and Middle East. They have a so-called Atlas probe measuring tools where they can measure, let's say, traffic and all kinds of traffic behavior. And normally, so before the pandemic, normally RIPE NCC has been measuring, for example, 10% congestion in the network. So that's more or less a normal thing. you may have like 10% congestion in the last mile. And this is based on the RIPE Atlas probe that that RIPE is using, the Atlas probes that RIPE is using. During the pandemic, they did observe an increase to 55%. So we have seen an increase of 45% congestions in network based on their observation. And now I come to, that was a kind of introduction to the user behavior. So now you have a view regarding what happened with the different kinds of networks. With respect to users' behavior, generally speaking, we can say that we have seen traffic increase somewhere between 30 to 37%, and with some very extreme cases, it depends the country again, even beyond 100%. But somewhere between 30 to 37 has been the, let's say, the new normal. That was a normal thing. But very extreme cases, even beyond 100%. We also have seen, for example, 9 in 10 internet users increase internet activities. So 9 in 10 internet users increased internet activity. So now, okay, you're locked down, you're at home, you don't have anything else to do. People starting to be very creative, and they're starting to develop new areas, I mean, good and bad on the internet. So we have both. And even we have seen 1 in 5, let's say, internet users, they even start new activities. For example, a new online business or whatever. So 1 into 5 person online internet users decided to build a new online business or whatever. And if we look at the general satisfaction of our internet experience of users, again, this is global figures. 6 in 10 were quite satisfied with their fixed broadband connectivity. So let's say 60% were satisfied, and still you had 40% that were not satisfied. And with respect to the mobile broadband services, we have seen that even, or we have seen, for example, within the mobile broadband business, people were much more satisfied. 3 in 4, even some of them did say that they have been experiencing a much better service if compared before the pandemic. And the reason for this is, remember, given that people are at home, they are just on the Wi-Fi of their home or wherever they are not using the mobile services that as much. So that is why we have seen overcapacity for those who would like to use it, and they have been experiencing a much better mobile service. We also have seen, for example, the smartphone application usage. So now people were trying to track, let's say, COVID-19 tracking and information, remote working, e-learning, wellness, education, remote health consultation. So these are now the applications that people were using with their smartphones. And of course we have seen also some decrease in, let's say, applications usage. For example, of course, the travel and booking business that did decline significantly. And also you may have some what we call parking applications. You may be in a given area and you just consult your parking application to see if there is a parking spot somewhere. Of course, given that everybody's at home, these kinds of application also they did decrease significantly. And one of the things that we believe will happen, because this has been, let's say, the user behavior, but all of us are talking about the new normal. So we do expect that some of these behaviors will remain permanently as that as well. So we don't expect changes in the near future. So that was a very long introduction to answer your question. What would happen with the with respect to the users' behavior?
Yes, Shernon, you've given us quite an extensive panorama of the changes across the entire internet value chain there. And it is quite impressive to see all of these changes. I wanted to go back to the particular issue of the satisfaction with broadband connectivity, the quality of service issues, because along the thinking of what may be myth versus reality, I think there's a distinction to be made between what is technical capacity and what would be what you consider network management practices that have been happening during the pandemic. Could you tell us a bit more about those quality of service issues around the internet experience during the pandemic, and probably dispel what would be reality versus myth when it comes to those quality of service issues?
Yes, of course. Especially when talking to IXPs, internet service providers and operators, the first thing that they would say is, okay, it's due to COVID that we have, let's say, bad service because everybody is online, blah, blah, blah. Okay. But IXPs and operators, they have a very important aspect of their activities is to monitor traffic. So you need to monitor, let's say, the traffic because you would like to give a good quality of service. So you cannot just say, okay, it's due to COVID that I cannot provide you that service. That is why you do have measurements, let's say traffic measurement tools that can give an indication now you need to buy more capacity. So that particular what do you call it, argument, it is not really relevant because simply if you like to do your work the way it should be done, then you need to monitor the traffic and just to increase that. And most let's say serious operators, they are ashamed of giving bad service. So technicians are there. They are monitoring, let's say, the traffic increase, and then based on that, they will talk to their managers to say, okay, we need to increase, let's say, in capacity in order for us to give good service. So, of course, we have seen traffic increase, but the reason why we have seen all these congestions are based on the fact that they don't want to invest in let's say, equipment or to buy more capacity.
All right, that's an interesting point there. It's quite illuminating to understand that it's not just a question. I mean, as you're saying, a lot of people are using pandemic as a cover for what would be more strategic investment decisions that should have taken at this particular time. Could you tell us, so we were talking about the ISPs just now, and before I move on to my other question, I'm taking the prerogative as the moderator here. Just a reminder to anyone who's connected to the call right now to put your questions. Okay. And I see a question coming from Chris Chinapu. So let me defer to Chris's question before I come back with mine. Christopher Chinapu is asking, what has been the challenges in implementing the community network projects? Okay, so we're going on to a different concept here. And how can the local ISOCs help overcome these challenges and roll out more networks around the region, in particular for rural communities? Just reading this question, I could assume that, you know, there had been a couple of negotiations for spectrum and such for the community networks, but let me put that to you, Shernon, about the community network projects at the time of the pandemic.
Yes, I'm glad that my good friend Christopher is asking that. So he's a good friend of mine as well. So one of the challenges, because at the end of this this interaction, one of the key messages that I would like to leave with you is that I did focus on what we have seen with traffic increase, all those kind of things, but we need to remember this still we have 50% of the globe that is not connected to the internet. So everything that we have been focusing on, it's applicable for 50% of the, almost 50% of the globe. And still 50% with COVID, no COVID, they have never been able to connect to the internet. And community networks is one of the areas where we have been focusing globally, but also in the Caribbean. We do have a few projects that we are exploring. Some of them are a much more further development phase, for example. I can mention, for example, St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Yes, because you have a lot of Saint in the Caribbean, so I had to be sure which one it was. Yes, so the St. Vincent and the Grenadines, they have how do you call it? Farmers community network, and in the Caribbean right now, that's the one that we are much further in development with that. The design is ready. We know all the technical details that we need. I think we do hope before the end of this year, we can present this this community network to the region. And we do have a few others as well that we are exploring in the wider Caribbean. But St. Vincent and the Grenadines is the one that we can say it's much further developed. So to answer your question, Mr. Chris, community networks are very important because remember, as I did mention, globally, we still have 50% that is not connected, but also we do have rural and underserved areas within our own region here in the Caribbean, people who are not connected. So we need to find ways how to get them connected. And one of the challenges that we are facing is you need the way how you need to promote this. The way, especially how I have been focusing on this and also other colleagues, community networks are not supposed to replace existing operators. So we're not there to fight with existing operators, say, okay, you have been doing bad job, but provide a bad service, those kind of things. Here you have the community network is going to solve all the problem. No. The community network, its focus is on areas that, for example, existing operators, they don't have any commercial initiative to deploy any infrastructure in that particular area. And this is the power of the community network, because then the community can come together and say, okay, we have a problem, we have a challenge, we would like to solve it. Existing operators are not solving this. And so together, how can we make it work? And even, for example, within CANTO, Caribbean Association of National Telecommunication Operators, we have been promoting community networks. When we did start doing this, people were saying, okay, you guys are crazy. How would you, within the operators community, talk about, about community networks? But it's the way how you promote it. And also, again, it's very easy to put a few antennas somewhere in the middle of a jungle. But how do you get what we call the backhaul, the connectivity to the internet? And here is where, for example, existing operators, they can play a significant role. Maybe they are not interested in putting those antennas in the middle of a jungle, for example, but the backhaul, they would like to provide it because they get something out of it. They're not doing that for nothing. They are getting paid for that. So if they have someone else where the traffic is being generated, at the end of the day, they are the ones that will still get something out of that. So that's the approach. And within the CANTO community, I can tell you that you may have some operators that are looking a bit strange at it, but generally speaking, they don't have an issue with it because we are focusing on areas that they are not focusing on. So we are not really a competition to them.
Okay, we have another question here from Dr. Daisley. Yes, Jackie.
Kevon, can I ask just one quick thing? During the pandemic, did the lockdowns have much of an effect on ongoing community network projects? Because I know that they had an effect on some of our, in Trinidad and Tobago, the government Wi-Fi projects had to shut down because of the lockdown. And so there was a project that should have had, community centers and free Wi-Fi for people. And that is now quite a ways behind because the lockdown happened. Does that happen? Did that sort of thing happen elsewhere?
Yes, it's basically twofold, because if people are locked down, we need to abide to the rules that are in a given country. You cannot say, okay, the country is locked down and still you are there with your antennas, whatever, trying to go against government policy. So we don't do those kind of things. So we abide to the local laws as well. But it's twofold, because on the other hand, you also have, for example, I can give an example of Belize. We are not that far as yet, but still, they were saying, okay, given that we are in a lockdown and we have a lot of our students cannot go to schools or whatever, we need to promote this thing as soon as possible, as quickly as possible. So it's twofold. You may have, due to the situation, people cannot do anything. And you can also have, due to the situation that people are locked down, especially children not being able to attend any schools, they don't have access to the internet. For example, in Belize, you have some rural areas for the Maya community that we did visit, for example, where there is nothing. So if they don't have access to the internet, they have a big problem. So to them, that's a priority. How can we get internet as quickly as possible? So that's twofold to answer your question.
And it's along that same trend that Dr. Daisley had made a question. He asks, what kind of community network free Wi-Fi zone projects are on the way? So you were speaking about the rural Mayan communities within Belize. To your knowledge, what else is on the way in terms of community network free Wi-Fi zone projects?
When we talk about free, we need to be careful about the definition of free, because nothing is free. One way or the other, someone is going to pay for it, right? And you have some, let's say, business models at which, for example, the community should be able to keep that network up and running. So when we talk about community networks, we always focus on the sustainability of the project as well. And there are a few models that can be used. For example, in Mexico, we do have a community network where the community, each member, they pay, for example, $1 per month. And that amount is for them to pay the backhaul to the operator that is providing them the connectivity. For example, in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, which is the most, let me call it, further developed community network that we are working on right now. We haven't decided as yet the final model, but I think in one way or the other, because our local chapter friends, they are discussing with the locals authority what the model should be. But we believe it will also be a kind of a contribution from the farmers, because at the end of the day, that community network has been built for them. So in one way or the other, they are the ones that should keep it up and running. And I believe as well, we haven't reached agreement on that as well, but I believe as well the government also maybe can subsidize maybe a part of it, looking at it as a kind of a social development in their particular country. So, but to answer, I think it was Dr. Daisley, it's the sustainability of the project is very important. So whenever we talk about community network, and I think Chris can tell you about that, we have one session talking about the sustainability of the project as well, because it's not the intention that others should keep that community up and running. At the end of the day, it's the community that should keep their community network up and running, and they need to find ways how to cover the recurrent costs that are involved with that community network.
So that's a myth then, that community networks equal free Wi-Fi.
Nothing is free in this world. Nothing is free. I mean, it may be free. I mean, it depends the way how you define it. But at the end of the day, someone will pay for it.
Yeah.
Because I mean, even for example, at Internet Society, we donate equipment. We have other partners that are helping us, let's say, with the equipment donation. But even those equipment, they are not free. Someone did pay for them, you know? So
exactly.
Only you are getting them for free, but someone else did pay for them.
Right.
Yeah, because there is sometimes this kind of thought that ISOC will come in and put up this thing and the community will get internet and it'll be free.
No, and
it's good to let people know that that's
a model.
Yes.
The community has to put something into it.
Yes, and I think let me just spend 1 second with this, because I think this is very important for us to know and to understand. Because at the end of the day, we would like to see within Internet Society, we are working a lot on capacity building. So it's not like for example, here in the Caribbean, we have significant expertise. So we are using our own people as well. It's not like we are just looking in the direction of Europe or direction of the US to help us. We would like to see our own people taking the lead and help us in this regard as well. So that is why we need to find solutions how to deal with the sustainability challenge that may arise from these networks.
Correct. All right.
And one of the things that really happens is that, as you said before, people, once they get access to the internet, they do have the ability to become entrepreneurs, open their own businesses, start doing things. And so it's more of an investment of the community in the community that we need to start thinking about it in that way.
Yes, and when we are promoting community, maybe you have heard me saying this before. We are not promoting community network just for people to be on Facebook and do gossip and those kind of things, right? So it's very important for them to use the internet for something useful, right? I see we have a participant from Haiti here on the call as well. In Haiti, for example, with the local chapter, we have been discussing this, and also Kevon, I think, within LACNIC as well, especially women, to empower women in Haiti to use the internet to conduct online businesses. Maybe some of us don't know, but especially Haitian women, they have been very successful in doing business, let's say, around the region. So across the region. So they have been going to free zone areas in Panama, in Curacao, for example, and then they go back to the country and then they sell their stuff, right? So just imagine if they can have their platforms there in Haiti, and not only selling to the Haitian, but sell to the whole world. So, but these things are only possible when you have access to the internet. So when we are promoting community networks, it's not just to give people access to the internet, but use your imagination, some, let's say, commercial skills or whatever, business entrepreneurship, and see how we can develop new kinds of businesses for the region as well.
All right. Yeah, and Shernon, I'll actually continue with that plug you made there. Yes, indeed, LACNIC did work significantly on a project that looked at building up capacity among young women and girls in data processing concepts and the like, so that they can be empowered to find a lot of digital opportunities. And they have been taking that up. They have been looking at how they would do what you would call traditional services, but within a digital dispensation. And of course, one of the elements of the project we had was to see if girls could form particular clusters and provide remote services for other companies with a diasporic link to Haiti. So this is indeed a time for all of these things to come together, not only the community network projects, but the idea of digital empowerment that can come from that. So we're not just talking about empowering or connecting just to download content and use Facebook, but we're actually looking at the entire productivity and contribution to the internet economy in these times. Shernon, I wanted to go back to an issue you were talking about. We were talking just now about backhaul for community networks. I wanted to extend that concept or that question to what will be the lesser known issues for upstream providers during the pandemic.
So you mean with respect to traffic increase, or what exactly?
Yeah, with respect to traffic increase. Yeah, not just the community network, but just in general, with respect to traffic increase and what the ISPs will have to deliver.
Yes. I mean, as I did mention, one of the things that the IXPs has been doing or need to do is to monitor, let's say, the traffic, let's say, from their how do you call it? From their providers, not providers, their customers, and based on that, the only thing, very simple thing that they have to do, they can see the traffic increase, and they need to buy new, traffic capacity. So they need to purchase that in order to give people more capacity, or they need to buy new equipment. But I must admit, if we look within the Caribbean, most IXPs and operators have been even, how would you call it, double the speed of a lot of their customers. So they are aware of given that we have seen the move from, let's say, from office to home, they have been providing or double the speed, let's say, to their customers. That I'm not going to mention any name from any particular IXP in the Caribbean right now, but we have been observing that because they too don't want people to feel like they cannot do anything online, and they have a kind of a social responsibility as well. Most of them do have a policy with respect to social responsibility, given that they have been collecting our monies for donkey years, as you guys say there in Trinidad. so now they can give something back to the community. So that's that. In my view, that part with respect to the IXP is quite straightforward. It's not rocket science in that. It's just to monitor the traffic increase and take the necessary measures to ensure that their customers continue to receive the service as expected.
Okay, good. I'm just seeing this comment here within the chat. It's just Marc Edouin just from Haiti introducing himself, saying that he's the president of the Haitian Fishing Federation of Sport at the Sea. So I think that dovetails well with what you're talking about, productive activities and enabling the internet and community projects within Haiti. Marc, merci un peu, nous content ou la puis nous Osea. That's my little plug for Creole there. Going back to what we were talking about, and again, if anyone has any questions, any comments, again, please feel free to put them in the chat. We have just about 15 minutes again left for this evening's edition. So in the meantime, I'll use this prerogative to ask Shernon, what has been some of the observations? I mean, if you can go beyond your Internet Society hat, what has been some of the observations you've been made aware of with internet issues during the pandemic, and what has happened in other parts of the internet ecosystem, particularly in other organizations, discussions, for instance, happening at ICANN, etc., because of the pandemic specifically?
Yes. For example, at ICANN, given that ICANN is the organization that focuses on the, domain name system. So I think all of us here are familiar with domain name system, so I don't need to focus much on that. but people were trying to, how would you call it, to abuse the domain name system, especially using all kinds of domain names related to COVID, right? So you may see whatever vaccine or whatever .com, whatever, or whatever. And then I didn't mention it, but the hackers has also been very active during this pandemic, and they still are very, very active. Because this has been a great business opportunity for them as well. Because most of us maybe don't know, but the Caribbean is a very interesting place for hackers. I'm not going to mention any names right now because we have friends in those countries as well. But most of these persons, they use the Caribbean as their kind of a playing ground, and where they can learn all the skills, and then from here they go elsewhere. Most of the times we don't focus much on, let's say, protection of our networks. Our networks are wide open. If you look, for example, at the domain names that I have been talking about, most of us don't use what we call the DNSSEC, which is how you can protect your domain name. So it's a business opportunity. And given that all of us would like to get rid of COVID, whenever you see a link with click on this, and then you can get advice how to get rid of COVID, most of us will click on it, and then you get hit by all these very smart hackers. So that's one of the areas that ICANN has also been focusing a lot to ensure that the domain name system remains secure. If you look at, let's say, your own organization, LACNIC, and also other regional internet registries, they have been focusing a lot on the internet routes, because there are two key components within the internet. You have the domain names, for example, the Kevon.tt, that's a domain name. But the internet is all about networks interconnected. So you may have a Tracy network, you may have a Kevon network. I see you have Jai there as well, a Jai network. So you need to send traffic from one of these networks to the other. So how can you be sure that when I send traffic from the Tracy network, it ends up to, and its intention is to reach Kevon, it reaches Kevon and not Jai, for example. And these are the things that regional internet registries such as LACNIC and ARIN in our region are focusing on, so-called RPKI, Research Public Key Infrastructure, to ensure that the internet routes are secure. So the names and the routes, these are the areas where we can see that other, let's say, members of the internet ecosystem are focusing a lot to ensure that they are safe for the wider community.
Okay. I see, Jackie, we have someone, Dr.
Yes, Dr. Daisley has a question. So you can go ahead, unmute, and ask a question.
Yes, please. Thank you so very much, first of all, for hosting this webinar, Ms. Osepa. You are very knowledgeable in your area. I wanted to say, and thank you, Jackie. I wanted to say that in this time of COVID, I have found that, we are a part of so many international committees using WhatsApp. How can we protect ourselves from hackers? Because there's no real, I don't know if there's a way to actually protect ourselves, or do you have like some standard of behavior that we should conduct ourselves within the context of international committees on WhatsApp?
It's not, thank you, Dr. Daisley, for your question. It's not only about the, let's say, WhatsApp. I mean, as I did mention, hackers, they're very smart. Most of these guys, these hackers, they have PhDs in computer science, most of them. You may have a few with master degrees and maybe one or two with bachelor, but most of them are, so they're very smart. They know what they're doing. right? So it's a very difficult fight. I think the only thing that we can do is to raise awareness that it exists, and to be a bit smart yourself, and to especially don't click on everything that you see. One of the other areas that we're seeing nowadays is also within Facebook. You have a lot of Facebook groups where they are approaching people as well, and then once you got approach, and then other things will happen. I just heard within, let's say, Facebook groups, that only this year they have experienced a how do you call it, a breach of almost 1.5 billion US dollars of people being hacked on the internet only this year, from January to, we are now in July, heading to August. So given that everybody is online, especially our youngsters on social media, they don't care, especially the youth nowadays. They don't care, they don't use anything. They just the same way that they're behaving outside, they're doing that online as well. So I think we should protect them. And the only thing, Dr. Daisy, that are one of the things that I think we can do is to continue to raise awareness that we are not living in a perfect world. You have crazy people outside there as well, and bad people as well. And we need to find ways how to protect ourselves from them, and not just believe, okay, everything that you see is the truth, right? So I think that's one of the ways how we can protect ourselves.
Right.
Well, I would say there's also the fact that with the pandemic, a lot of people rushed online.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of focus on getting machines to people and access to people, but very, very little focus on training people how to use these tools safely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that is definitely something that I think chapters can start thinking about doing, almost like a backfill now. Now we know people have laptops and tablets and so forth. The children are going to school and so forth. We've been working online. The companies that rushed to get people online, they've been using these tools, but they've not. Now is a good time to start reminding people that, okay, you have the car, you are driving it. Now you need to learn all the rules of the road. You need to learn defensive driving. You need to be able to deal with this in a safe and secure manner.
Correct.
Yeah. That's definitely an option that for projects that ISOC chapters can think about.
And also just to add a bit on that, Jacqueline, for example, if you have a company, of course, they have organizations, they have very sensitive data. Whenever you have your laptop with all the data from your company on that laptop, there should be policy in place as well for the company to protect their data. Because I mean, a staff with company data at home online, I mean, a lot of things can happen with that. And a lot of times these are very sensitive data that should not be in the hands of others. So there should be policy in place in order for us to protect ourselves. It's a very broad area, but we need to think about it.
And then there's even the thing that even with the policies, for example, people come home, people are working from home, but their child needs to do something and they don't, even though they know they shouldn't let their child on their work computer, people do. And I think part of that might be because they don't know how dangerous it is.
Yeah.
So yes, definitely.
Yeah, there's that happens on the level of home users. It would be remiss of me not to mention that one of the things that had been observed at LACNIC is that between 2019 and 2020, and in particular in 2020, between the months of March to December, there had been an increase of 311% in the total monies that were paid in ransoms because of ransomware attacks. So even enterprises, companies are under severe attack during this period. And again, is an entire question of preparedness and understanding how to address these things. And the reason why these attacks are happening and people have to pay ransoms is because the ecosystem in itself, we had a sudden shift of digitalization. We increased the cyber risk profile significantly, and the mechanisms to keep us safe weren't ready to keep up with that level of digitalization that we suddenly had during the pandemic. So there's definitely a lot of room for chapters and a lot of room to do some backstopping when it comes to the security elements of using devices on the internet. Yeah.
Yes. And encryption, for example, can help in that regard, because if you get a laptop with encrypted data, you cannot do anything with it, right? So encryption is also one of the measures that we should be promoting as well.
Okay, so of course, time flies when we're having fun. Niran reminds us that we have 5 minutes left. 5 minutes left, so we'd like to entertain any last comments, questions, anything that anyone on the call may like to add. I think it will be even quite convenient to probably allow some people to take the mic to make a comment or two to Shernon before we close off. Let us take advantage of his presence here this evening. Any last minute comments, questions?
I have a comment. I want to thank Shernon. This is Jason Cowie from Trinidad and Tobago. I want to thank you again for your valuable contribution to the Caribbean. And I'm hoping that with Niran and you guys here in Trinidad, that we can do some work in terms of some of the community-based networks that we're push. Looking forward to your support and working with you guys. Thanks.
Yes, thank you, Jason, as well. So another friend that I'm seeing there. Thank you.
Wonderful. And I think we have a last question here, Jackie. My glasses need to change, so you could probably help me out.
Dr. Daisley says, why do we need double authentication on our devices? Who wants to take that one?
Why do we need? I think we even need more than double authentication. Maybe we need three or whatever, because remember, for those of you who are not maybe familiar with authentication, is as the name suggests, it's two, let me call it two keys in order to get access to the data. And I think as we are going nowadays, things are going, I think we should even think of more authentication and not maybe the double, because double is already a bit outdated. And
especially with the SMS version that people are still using.
And remember, my friend, Dr. Daisley, we have very smart people out there, as I did mention, and they don't sleep, and they are busy the whole day, and especially right now during COVID. So we need to be, we need to try to outsmart them. It's a challenge, but we need at least to try to do that. Else the fight the battle, whatever, is lost.
Yeah. Yes, and just as a final comment, Shernon, you're absolutely right there. I guess one of the increasing challenges that communities face at this time is to be as organized and as competent as these crime syndicates. As you mentioned, a lot of them, they are PhDs in computer science and the like, and they just put their talents towards doing bad on the internet. I love the analogy you always use about the internet, that it's like a knife. You can use it to cut a slice of bread, but you can also use it to do some damage. So it's really a question as to what is the appropriate use that we want within our societies. So I think that we have come to an end of this evening's episode. I would like to thank everyone for joining us here this evening, despite of the technical difficulties that we had at the start. Of course, as internet aficionados, we were quick on the draw. We were quick to think about merging to another platform. And we did have quite an enriching and productive discussion here this evening. So on my behalf, I'd like to thank you tremendously, Shernon, for dedicating the time to speak with us here at the Internet Society Trinidad and Tobago chapter. And defer the very last words to our lovely Vice Chair, Jackie, who may want to talk about this evening and other things to come.
Yes, I'd like to thank Shernon for giving us such a wonderful session tonight. I do apologize for the technical difficulties that we had, and we will be here, I believe, next week. Hopefully our regular platform is working again, and we'll send out the links. And next week we will hopefully be hearing about technology and digitalization in the health field during the pandemic, because we've had obviously quite a lot of technology being applied to manage the pandemic and so on. So we'll hear from one of the guys who's been working on that. So thank you very much, and I'll see you next week.
Great. Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Yeah.
Enjoy your evening.
Bye-bye. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you again, Shernon.
Welcome. Pleasure.
Sure.
Thank you, Shernon.